these things don't annoy me because I've normally done an episode of The Mayor and I where I've listened to you moan, and I've decided I don't want to be a big girl's blouse, so I'm not moaning.
I was thinking there have been a lot of heroes and villains this year, haven't there, in 2024, so I thought it would be interesting to talk about them.
As weak, pathetic individuals who were lucky enough to be elected into power and then just followed on the same agenda as Tony Blair and the rest of the woke elite world.
Smooth and polished like a mannequin, a mask devoid of conviction, his dead eyes betray the mechanical emptiness of a man who mouths orders without thought, a puppet animated by strings of power.
These charlatans, these career politicians, these polished turds, stop voting for them. I'm not saying you should have voted for me. I'm just saying stop voting for people like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Mayor and I, edition 67.
The New Year's Eve special.
The New Year's Eve special, just in case you missed that.
Yeah.
With I, Lindsay Khan, and the Mayor, Nick Buckley. Nick, welcome to the New Year's Eve special.
The New Year's Eve special, the first one we've ever recorded, first thing in the morning.
Yes. So for our viewers,
who may be thinking they've had some drinks. No, it's that early in the morning.
we look this decrepit at this time in the morning. I think it's about 9 on a Sunday morning, and for scheduling reasons, we have to do it today.
Yeah.
But Christmas is over. Well, not over technically. It's 12 days, isn't there?
Yeah.
So did you have a good Christmas, Nick?
I did actually. It was nice and quiet, just me and my wife. Well, last year I think I cooked for 13 people last year. This year I just cooked for me and the missus. We've had a couple of pub lunches out. We've watched TV. It's been quiet, but I've been absolutely shattered. I've not stopped this year, so I just wanted to do nothing.
If there's a tissue, I could dab away a tear from the corner of my eye in sympathy for you.
So you should.
So we're going to start with heroes and villains of 2024, I think, which is an idea we've stolen from somewhere else on YouTube. But there's a couple of issues we need to talk about first, aren't there? Because I'm very upset about something, and I know you're very upset about something. So I'm upset because on the way here this morning, because it was early morning, I stopped to get a McDonald's coffee.
Right.
And they've changed the lid.
Right.
They've changed
to one of these eco crappy things.
Yes, so 20 years of drinking McDonald's coffee with a really good plastic, very well manufactured lid that works really well.
Yeah.
They've now got these crappy paper ones that spill coffee all over you when you're drinking. And it's outrageous, isn't it? And I was reflecting as I was driving in, and then as I drove down your street, I saw your neighbour had his electric car plugged in, and I thought, these people, this government, they impose these grubby little things on us, don't they, to try and solve global problems. And we found out over Christmas that the global coal consumption, has increased again this year, higher than it's ever been before. Something like 4.77 billion tonnes a year. So all this is going on around the world globally. Nothing is changing. But I have to have a paper cup on my coffee, and your neighbour's got to plug his crappy electric car into his mandatory electric point on the bottom, on the corner there.
Well, if we're going to start this episode with a good moan, then I've got two things I want to moan about on the same theme.
All right, sorry, go on then.
On the same thing.
I was going to talk about your issue in a minute.
Well, no.
You've had a minor issue.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking then, two things popped to my head of the eco-green thing that annoyed me this Christmas. The first thing is things I've bought for Christmas, such as pate, coleslaw, some olives. None of them have got lids on.
Yes.
They've got a cellophane top. You pull the cellophane top off, and then
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
They used to have a plastic lid you'd put
Those
on.
clear plastic lids they used to have on top of the things, they've got rid of them.
And they will tell me and you, we've done that for our carbon footprint and to save the dolphins and to do this and do that because it's less plastic. That's not why they've done it. They've done it to save themselves money. Those plastic lids might be a fraction of a penny, but when you sell 1 million products a month, all that adds up to 50, 60, 70, 100 grand.
Yeah.
You've just saved. So they're doing it to save money, but lying to us to our face by saying we're doing it on your behalf to save the planet annoyed me. The thing that annoyed me more than that, the new...
Clearly touched a nerve here.
Oh, it's just this Christmas. It's just... Normally, these things don't annoy me because I've normally done an episode of The Mayor and I where I've listened to you moan, and I've decided I don't want to be a big girl's blouse, so I'm not moaning. Because I've not seen you, I've got into moaning
You've
mode.
actually realised my little moans are justified, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has the right to moan about these crappy things. But sorry, go on, carry on.
So the other thing is bottle tops. So I like to drink cider in the house. So I buy 2 litre bottles of cider. And you unscrew the top. The top now's stuck on. You can't take the top off.
What?
You screw it off and then it's on a hinge.
What?
So when you're pouring it, if you don't have the bottle with
The right way round. Yeah.
It hits the top, misses the glass and goes everywhere. I've done that twice. And
what's the reason? What the hell is the reason for that?
because the bottle tops now are recyclable, so they want it to stay with the bottle, so you don't throw the tops away separately.
Why don't they just bloody leave us alone?
I know.
Why don't they leave us alone, the bastards?
Now, they all seem to be doing that, so I'm not sure if that is some new directive from government and you pay less tax if you have your bottles like that. But those 2 things have really annoyed me this Christmas.
Well, it's the same with that paper cup. Because of the design, it's spilling all down my front as I'm driving along. Whereas the plastic one was perfect. So we're now going backwards in terms of functionality as well, as a result of these crappy eco net zero things.
Plastic created was one of the reasons we created the modern world. Before that, everything was wood or metal, but we invented plastic that could do a lot more than wood and metal. It was more durable, more bendable, less breakable, and it improved everyone's lives.
Yeah.
Where now we're going back to, we have to use wood, and that's basically what paper is. It's wood. Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it is scandalous. But I was just reflecting this morning, just what you've described there as well. They're imposing these awful little situations on us, like the cut, like the tops, like the lack of plastic, like the electric charging points. Meanwhile, the global elite are having absolutely no impact on CO2, fossil fuel use, and none of that is changing at all.
Well, more of the elite, more of the top politicians, more of the million and billionaires, I would guarantee, I've got no stats for this, but I would guarantee more of them had private jets last year than any other year.
Yeah, yeah.
Because as they get richer and richer, they're quite happy having the luxuries of the modern world.
Yes.
They just don't want me and you to have the luxuries of the modern world.
Yeah. I was reading about, we'll maybe talk about it in another episode, reading about Lindsay Hoyle. You know, the Speaker of the House of Commons.
Yeah.
Apparently he spent something like 50,000 quid this year flying around the world, going to things that have got nothing to do with the government. First class.
Well, his job is to sit in the House of Commons.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's going around the world. And also because he's the Speaker of the House, that means he has to neglect to a certain extent his constituency.
Yes.
Because he's not a fully acting MP.
Yeah.
Now you think he'd be making up for that by not flying around the world, by spending more time in his constituency helping his constituents.
Correct.
Not using the luxuries of office.
Yeah.
I mean, what's he doing going around the world?
I'll tell you in the episode we get to it. But they are all hypocritical arseholes, aren't they? They really are. This is about heroes and villains, by the way, and we're kind of wandering off track here.
We just talked about Lindsay Hoyle. There's a villain for you.
He's a villain. He's not in my not in my top. So we're ending 2024 in a couple of days.
Yeah.
We had an episode pre-Christmas where we kind of reviewed the year.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking there have been a lot of heroes and villains this year, haven't there, in 2024? So I thought it would be interesting to talk about them. So what I thought would be good to do is, and I think we've said 5, but we might go beyond 5.
I struggled with 5.
Really?
I struggled with thinking of 5 real heroes and 5 real villains. I struggled.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I've got my fair share. So should we start with you and you go with your... Should we count down or count up?
Count down.
Count down. So do you want to give me your 5th hero and your 5th villain of 2024?
Yeah. Do you want to start with heroes or villains?
Let's start with villains.
Right.
Because they're more interesting, aren't they?
My number 5 5 villain is not an individual, it's a group, and that's called the Tory government. For me, everything that's going wrong at the moment and been going wrong for decades all started, maybe even if it didn't technically start, it was allowed to grow and allowed to expand and allowed to become the mainstream, all under 14 years of Tory rule.
Yes.
It's far too simplistic to say everything that's going wrong now is Keir Starmer's fault. He's making things worse, but it's not Keir Starmer's fault at all. He's following on from Tory policies, Tory practices. And I think when we look back in history, I think the last 14 years of Tory government will be seen as incompetent, as traitors, as Marxists, as weak, pathetic individuals who were lucky enough to be elected into power and then just followed on the same agenda as Tony Blair and the rest of the woke elite world. I think the 14 years of Tory government, and I all started with Cameron, who I think killed the Tory party. Theresa May, DEI hire, failed when she was tested. Boris Johnson, the biggest letdown in a prime minister of my lifetime, the biggest letdown. Talk about over-promising and under-delivering. He sold himself as the new Churchill, and he turned into he turned into
the complete opposite of Churchill.
A weak, pathetic man.
Yeah.
A cook of a man being led by a lead by his new young wife, and would just do anything that made him feel he was being popular. Complete. And I think I'm more angry with him because I bought into his lies in 2019. I bought into it, so I feel a fool as well for believing it. Well, lots of people were telling me, Nick, don't believe a word that man says. He's a liar. But they were the same people who would tell me no matter who I was voting for, don't vote for them. So when you cry wolf too many times and warn people about everything, when you're right, they don't listen to you anyway. So Tory government, I think, are the biggest villains of this year because...
So number 5, we were counting down.
Sorry, number 5, the biggest in the list. They're in my list because they are the biggest, number 5 on the list of the biggest villains this year. Tory party. We all need to remember never to stop despising them until they've had a clean out.
I mean, I think the way we're going to do this is let's listen to your top 5, but I'll comment, and if there's any that aren't in my top 5 or whatever, they'll do.
We're bound to have a lot.
We're going to have a lot in common. However, on my list, interestingly enough, wasn't the Tory party, but Rishi Sunak. And Rishi Sunak, for pretty much the same reasons you just described, he was the figurehead, the grinning imbecile at the head of the Tory party when it succumbed and went over. But he was the kind of captain who went down with the ship of the Tory party at the time, the symbol, if you like, of the Tory party.
Well, I had him on my list, and then when I thought, well, how can I have him on my list, but not all the other Tory leaders? And that's when I went, no, it has to be the Tory government.
Although you're kind of moving into previous years, but I get your principle. It's dead right. That's very interesting. Okay, well, who's your number 5 hero of 2024, Nick?
It has to be somebody that at the couple of years ago when they really hit the scene, and you'll understand what I mean when I say hit the scene in a minute. I thought they were non-political, but it turns out they're very political, and it turns out that they are, by that one action, saving the world, and that person is Elon Musk. I never realised how buying Twitter and freeing Twitter as the public square would change the world, and change the world so fastly. It's given people who were silenced on Twitter, it's given them not only the tools to speak, but the confidence to speak. The discussions on Twitter now, some are mental. Some, lots I disagree with. But at least we can have him now, can't we? At least we can have him. At least it's not just another propaganda arm of the status quo, of the elite, of being controlled. He's freed up the public square in the Western world. And I know he got involved with Trump and funded Trump and is talking about him funding reform. I don't mean any of that. I'm talking purely about buying
The purchase
Twitter,
of Twitter, yeah.
which is my favourite social media app.
Yeah.
Because only if you're involved in politics. I like politics. If you're not, then Twitter's probably not for you.
Yeah.
But all the good and the bad are on there.
Yeah.
Even the people who say we're leaving Twitter, we're going to Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, yeah.
Most of them are still on Twitter.
Yeah,
because
there are clouds at Blue Sky, which I'll talk about later. Then.
Yeah, Blue Sky crap won't last.
Yeah.
But yeah, Elon Musk is a hero to me because he saved free speech for the Western world.
I think that's a great choice, and coincidentally, my number 5 was Elon Musk as well.
Oh.
And I think, as you say, that the critique of the global elites, he recognised and bought Twitter because he realised free speech was dying in America. And I think you're right, he's had more, I mean, you could argue him higher up the list, really. He's had more of an impact on free speech and people speaking openly now. Oh, it's interesting, I was chatting with my kids yesterday about, because I think things are shifting fast now. People are talking about immigration. We're going to talk about a Twitter storm you're in at the moment later, maybe not this episode, but another one. Things are moving fast now. But I was talking to my kids who are kind of casual observers of the things that I'm interested in, my wife are interested in, and we're interested in. And they said there's a lot more discussion now about these topics like trans, immigration, all those things now are being talked about openly and people are speaking far more freely. If Elon Musk hadn't bought Twitter, that is highly unlikely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that conversation, that dialogue, and like us talking now and people listening to us, gets people talking, being less afraid to speak about these things. So if they see it on Twitter, if they see Musk being vocal about these things as well, it has a massive impact. So I agree. I would argue he might be higher up the list than number 5 just because of the impact he's had.
I think you could be correct. I think this time next year he may be at the top of the list because we may see more outcomes of the purchase of X and his involvement.
Yeah.
I've got a theory why he bought X.
Go on.
I don't think he necessarily bought X to save the world. I don't think he bought X to protect everyone's free speech. I think he bought X because he was a very upset father and he was looking at punishing the people who gave him pain.
Yeah.
His son is a trans woman now and his son doesn't speak to him, hates him, and I think he looked at social media and went, you did that to my family.
Yeah, I think he said that, hasn't he?
I don't know.
He's actually said that.
But that was always been my interpretation,
Yeah.
was he's going, right, if you can do that to me,
Yeah.
the richest man in the world, and you can destroy my family with propaganda and this ideology, then you can destroy anything.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure it's harder for you to do this going forward, and I'm going to buy that platform.
I think you're right that he has definitely referenced that as
Right.
what happened, that social media poisoned his son. I think if you actually asked Musk why he'd done it, I think there would be multiple answers,
Yeah, of course.
and he probably doesn't know either why he did it, because I think that guys like that and the way they operate, they don't think like you and I think. I think they think very differently. So his decision will have been based on all sorts of kind of weird things at the time, and he probably couldn't articulate it now. But I think that's a great choice, Nick. For a
And there's
hero.
also...
he has got to be definitely in the top 5 for 2024.
He's also a good example to everybody else in the country and everybody else who watches this, which is bad things happen to all of us. He lost his son. His son's mentally ill. His son doesn't speak to him anymore, and he's the richest man in the world. So if bad things can happen to him, bad things can happen to all of us.
Yeah.
He easily could have bunkered down and did nothing.
Yeah.
But he decided to put everything he had, which is a lot more than anyone else has got, on the line to fight back. Why is he fighting back? Because he's a man. He's a father. And he's looked and went, you did this to my family. I'm not having that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take you on. And I may lose. But do you know what? I'll be a bloody good second.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson we need to learn out of Musk, is we all should be fighting back. We haven't got the billions he's got, but we all can fight back. And especially if you're a man, to protect your family, protect your children, protect your country. It's your duty to use the resources, the very limited resources you've got, to fight back.
Yeah.
And for me, the main resource we all have is free speech. So start using it before you lose it.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think what's interesting about Musk as well is, unlike all the other trillionaires, billionaires we've got out there, they're only trillionaires. He's nearly a trillionaire, isn't he? The billionaires we have out there, most of them become government shills, don't they? When they get their money, they toe the line. They go along with the government. They go and they
Most people do.
Yeah, they get involved with Obama and all that jazz. But Musk hasn't, has he?
No.
He's just carried on being true to himself, his vision, what he wants to do, and what he sees. And I think that's fantastic. And what's interesting is I've noticed all the other tech billionaires are now heading over to Mar-a-Lago to see Trump.
They can see the tides turning.
Yeah.
We can see Trump's one now. We can see the country's changed. We know Trump may not be president in 4 years' time, but J.D. Vance probably will.
Yeah.
We're going to have a decade of this,
Yeah.
and maybe even longer. The country's changed. I run a business.
Yeah.
I better get on board,
Yeah.
because I don't care what I believe in as
Yeah.
long as I'm making money.
Correct.
So tell me what to believe now,
Yeah.
and I'll start believing that, because my allegiance to these ideologies was only skin deep. I don't care. I just want to make money. So they're all changing their opinions now.
And I think what we're seeing now, and you're in a Twitter storm at the moment, we're going to talk about later, what we're seeing now on Twitter and on the news and these shrill voices from race grifters, trannies, all those kind of people as well. I think these are the last screams now of an ideology that is dying.
Oh, it's absolutely
I really
dying.
believe that.
Yeah, it's dying. It's going to die quickly in the private sector. It's going to take a lot longer in the public sector, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
It may die quick in America because he's looking at sacking loads of people and cutting government. We're not looking at any of that here.
Yeah.
So it'll die.
That's going to happen when we get in power.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'll happen when we get in power. But yeah, so I think I think the Musk choice is a brilliant one. And as we talk, I actually think he should be higher up. But yeah, I put him at 5 as well. Okay, so your number 4 villain, Nick,
is the one everybody in the country would probably put at number 1 at the moment. I'd put him at number 4.
Keir
Starmer.
You put him at number 4?
Number 4.
I'm shocked.
Because he's not the architect of most of the things that are wrong and going wrong. He's just the latest captain of the Titanic. He needs to take personal responsibility, and I do blame him. That's why he's on the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only think he's number 4. I don't think he's an evil genius sat stroking a white cat.
He's definitely not an evil
exactly.
genius.
He's just the latest in a long line of B-class politicians. And to be fair, we've not even got B-class politicians. He's a C-class politician, because he can't even do the communications. He can't even do the PR to a decent level anymore now.
Yeah.
He's given up because he's said to himself, I'm not very good at it. All people think politicians lie anyway. No matter what I say, even though most of it's lies, they're going to think the 5% that isn't a lie. They're going to think it's a lie anyway. So I'll just lie all the time, because there's no consequence to me lying to the public.
Yeah.
I've just seen 30 years of people lying every day to the public, and there's never been a consequence. I might as well stop pretending to care and just start lying all the time. So that's why he's on the list. That and his authoritarian streak. He is a villain, but I think it's far too simplistic to raise him to number 1 as if he's the problem. He's not the problem. He's just the latest manifestation of the same problem.
That's really interesting. I think that's interesting for 2 reasons. One is I've put him at number 1 as I thought everybody would. But the second point that's interesting is I'm now fascinated to hear what your number 1 is, because there must be, obviously don't tell me yet, but there must be some shadowy figure that you've put at number 1 that I'm not even thinking about at the moment.
You're going to like my number 1. Because it's you.
I've put, I actually put my villains into ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to write about them in the form of George Orwell in 1984. So it wrote from here, the enforcers of the party, the keepers of the lie, the agents of control, their outer forms as twisted as their inner truths. And it says for Keir Starmer, his face, smooth and polished like a mannequin, a mask devoid of conviction, his dead eyes betray the mechanical emptiness of a man who mouths orders without thought, a puppet animated by strings of power.
Perfect.
Which kind of fits into what you've just said.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, that. So he's your number 4 villain.
Yeah.
Who is your equivalent number 4 hero of 2024?
My number 4 hero is a little bit like Elon Musk, as in he's lower down on the list today, but this time next year he could be at number 1. So he's at number 4 today, and it's President Trump.
Ah, really?
President Trump has changed America. If I was sat in America, maybe he'd be number 1 now.
Yeah.
But we're not in America, we're in the UK. His presidency is likely to change the UK and the Western world forever. But he's not done it yet.
Yeah.
But he's been a breath of fresh air. He started many of the conversations that we're having. He is the only world leader who's attacked the LGBT. That's all ending now in America. He's come out with his policies. He's going to sack all the, you call them trannies, out the army and the navy. They're all being sacked. It's going to be discharged on mental health grounds. Basically, you're mentally ill, you don't serve. Here's a payoff.
Yeah.
He's getting it with the schools. He's doing all the things we want to happen in this country. And he is a breath of fresh air. He's someone we're all looking to now and going, it can happen there.
Yeah.
We've been told for decades none of this can happen.
Yeah.
And we're not allowed to do it, and no one else will do it, and we'll be a pariah on the world stage if we do it. But the most powerful country in the world's doing it. And he seems to be saying, and this is absolutely racist and homophobic, he seems to be saying, I'm going to put US citizens first.
Yeah.
Shock horror.
Yeah.
He's saying other countries' trade deals take advantage of US workers. I'm not having it. I don't know if he's right or wrong. It doesn't matter. The fact he's saying I'm putting US citizens first makes me want to salute the Star-Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
As finally we've got a world, the world leader going, citizens should come first.
Yeah.
That's why we created nation states.
Yeah.
So somebody would put their citizens first.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean putting your citizens first means you've got to denigrate and kill and make other people poorer in the world. That might be the consequences of your actions, but that's not your aim. But that's for their leaders to make sure they're not poorer and they don't die and their countries don't fail. That's for their leaders to sort out. We vote our leaders to make our lives better and our country better. And for the last so many decades, we've seen the world seems to have, the Western world seems to have forgotten that. And he's suddenly remembered it. Well, he's always known it, but he's brought it to public attention again. And that's why he's number 4 on my list, because he's one of the only world leaders, he's the most powerful world leader who thinks like I think. And it's like, thank God for that.
Yeah. I think he has to be in the top 5. I've got him at number 1 though, because I think, well, you've said 2 things there which I agree with. One is that he thinks like you and me, and like most people think about these things. And a lot of people have been thinking these things, but been scared to say they're thinking these things because they're frightened of being called racists, homophobes, transphobes, Islamophobes, or whatever. They're scared of saying anything, and they're thinking these things in their head and thinking, am I wrong? Because all the media and everybody's saying that I'm a racist right-wing thug or whatever. He's articulated thoughts and said things that normal people think. But the second thing I think is that without him, I think we would be heading to be North Korea, China, all these, so I think that we as a nation in the UK and America was heading in that direction to become a totalitarian communist state, basically. And he, as a complete and utter mutant freak, completely unrelated to the conventional political system, has completely overturned the convention.
And that's because he's not a politician.
Because he's not a politician, yeah.
If he'd wanted to be a a politician instead of wanting to be a property developer.
Yeah.
He'd have spent all his time with politicians, climbing up the greasy pole,
Yeah.
taking on their traits, copying
Yeah.
their policies, and he would have been a different version of Barack Obama.
Correct. Yeah.
But because he went into politics 10 years ago,
Yeah. Almost on a whim.
on a whim,
Yeah.
I would have said he did it probably as a bit of a joke.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think he did start it as a joke.
Yeah, I would imagine he did, as in, I'm a TV personality. This will only do my reputation good.
Yeah.
I think the country's going down the wrong way. I'll be able to vocalise some of the things I think are going wrong, but I ain't got a chance now.
Yeah.
And as it went on, he looked like he was going to win. So he was a fluke. Same with the guy in Argentina. He's not a career politician.
No, he's not.
And that's what
He's
we need.
a lawyer, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what we need to get away from, is career politicians.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to get something different if you keep fishing in the same pool?
Correct.
You catch
Yeah.
the same fish because that's
Yeah.
all that's available in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And when I worked for the council, we had a saying called DDSS, different day, same shit. And that's what happens when you've got career politicians. They may look different, they may sound different, but you're fishing in the same pool. You've just
Correct.
got the same fish.
Correct.
So yeah, I agree. He's in the top 5. He may be number 1 next year.
Yeah, he's a great choice, and he's got to be in top 5. So I applaud that. Down to number 3, and number 3 of your villains of 2024, Nick.
Yes, this one is probably on your list, which will be Axel. I'm an Islamic nutcase, ungrateful that this country gave my family asylum status, and to pay back everybody, I'll go kill 3 girls. So that guy.
Yeah. Axel Rudakabana.
Yeah, I just don't like. I don't want to give myself expend the energy on trying to remember his surname.
No, but I think it's important to have his name, because the name, people need to know his name and revile his name.
Yeah,
I think
I
because
agree.
So I've spent time trying to make sure I can pronounce his surname, for that matter.
Yeah.
Because otherwise everybody goes, oh, it's that bloke, Axel, whatever. So I think we need to know his name.
That's a very good point. I'm
Yeah.
going to learn his name now. It's a very good point.
Rudakabana.
Rudakabana.
It's quite easy, actually.
Yeah.
Rudakabana.
Yeah. So my number 3rd choice of villain is Axel Rudakabana.
Yes.
The scumbag who it looks like he killed 3 young girls, young children at a dance studio in the summer in Southport. He is the poster child of why we need to end mass immigration.
Yes.
He himself was born in Wales to 2 parents who were asylum seekers, I believe, but came from Rwanda. So people argued, well, he's not an immigrant. Well, he's an immigrant.
Yeah.
He's just a 2nd generation immigrant.
Yeah.
He has no European blood in him. He has no British blood in him. He was raised by immigrants. He's an immigrant. That is not necessarily a slur. Nothing wrong in being an immigrant. My dad was an immigrant. Your dad was an immigrant.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a slur. It's just factually true. He's shown us that mass immigration doesn't work, and for a litany of reasons. The first one is we have no idea who we're importing. We've imported a strain of mental health illness with his family. People, the vast majority of people, not the vast, a hell of a lot of people in Rwanda were involved in the genocide, killing each other with machetes. It wasn't just a few thousand people, it was a population chopping their neighbours up. There's a very good chance his family were probably involved, because lots and lots of Rwandans were involved. Do you remember me telling you about the guy who was the star of Hotel Rwanda?
Yes, who's now been arrested for being involved in the Rwanda
genocide. Turns out I was wrong.
All right. Okay.
He was arrested. It was all to do with fraud and stuff like that.
Right.
I must have got mixed up and thought it was connected. It wasn't connected to that at all. So I'm glad that came up.
So can you retract the legal case that's now
No,
against
but
you?
I'll see you in court.
Yeah,
So Axel has opened the UK up, the consciousness up to it's okay to not want immigration.
Yes.
Because he's the poster child boy now of this. Who wants to import nutcases?
Yeah.
Who wants to import people that we feel sorry for, but then pay us back like this? Just like the guy who blew up the Manchester Arena.
Yeah.
We gave his family asylum from Colonel Gaddafi. They came here. We raised their child. He went to English schools. We gave him the best of Britain. And what did he do? He repaid us by blowing up and killing 22 people.
With explosives paid for by benefits paid by this government to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he is a villain. But like most villains, they open up the eyes of the populace to show us what's going on.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? He is a villain, but he's also in some ways been a positive force in terms of opening people's eyes to the horrors of immigration and what we're seeing with immigration as well. I think the immigration thing is interesting, isn't it? Because of course all the bleeding heart liberals are saying, "Oh, he's Welsh" and all that crap. Remember, we were told he was Welsh for a while, and then but.
It's Christmas at the moment.
Yeah.
Jesus was born in a stable. Doesn't make him a horse.
Yes. Thank you for that really good parallel. But the point about this kid, Axel Radikabana, he is a product of immigration. But immigration now is different to what it was when my father came here, when people like my father integrated into society, married an English woman, and we were raised as he was an Englishman at heart, and we were raised as English people with English culture. What's happening now is people are coming to this country like the Rwandans, like his parents, not integrating into society, having children who don't integrate into society. And we see this massively in the Asian and the Muslim community as well. But then worse than that, embracing an ideology, a religion that is now gathering momentum in this country and shouldn't be gathering momentum, which is Islam basically as well. So it was there's like a double whammy of immigration there. First of all, he's an immigrant family, and the second thing is he embraced an ideology that we've allowed to fester in this country as well. So this idea that he's not an immigrant is absolute bollocks at the end of the day. He's actually a product of two elements of immigration. What we're seeing are the bad parts of immigration in this country, and it has opened people's eyes. So I think you're right. But he is a villain, but he's also somebody who's given us clarity on this immigration issue as well. So that's a good one.
Let me push back a little bit on the idea that decades ago we had good immigration and now we've got bad immigration. The immigration times of your father and my father was not good immigration. The people didn't want it then. It may not have been as bad as it is now, and some of those people may have fitted into our culture better than a lot of the people now, but it wasn't wanted then. They brought their own problems. They just weren't as big as it is now. So the problem of mass immigration starting after the Second World War has been an incline. Our fathers turned up when the incline was quite small, and the numbers are quite small.
Numbers are very small.
But the people who lived alongside our fathers didn't want our fathers in the country, and probably rightly so. It was their country. We were never asked, did we want our fathers to come to this country? Nobody was ever asked. It was forced upon us. But the problem has got worse and worse and worse and worse. We need to get away from thinking that the problem now is just a new problem over the last couple of decades. We need to stop thinking this problem is just a Muslim problem or a Indian subcontinent problem. This is a problem of all immigration because we've never managed it, and we've never asked migrants who've come here, we've never told them what the rules were of this country and what we expect of them living here. We allowed them to do whatever they wanted to do.
I think we did in the 50s and 60s. So when you said immigration hasn't been managed, I'd agree. In the last 10 years it hasn't been managed.
Ever.
I would have said when my father arrived, it was managed, even though it may not have been managed officially. I think the immigrants then did integrate into our society, embraced a lot of the British culture. I think the problem is now the sheer volume and also the way it's been managed means there's no integration. So we're getting people living in silos, cultures, and like we talk about Somalis, we talk about Pakistanis, they all live in their own societies and with their own cultures now, don't they?
That was happening when we were kids.
Not to the extent it is now.
But that's all down to numbers.
Yes, correct.
We had the same problems then, but things have got worse because the numbers are just horrendous now. The problem is mass immigration. The problem isn't the time period now, who the migrants are necessarily. It's a problem with mass immigration.
That's an interesting view, I suppose. That it's always been an issue, but it's not affected us that badly because it's been. I think the problem is now it's highly visible to everybody.
Well, my uncles have told me in the 60s, all my dad's brothers obviously were Irish. They've told me stories of no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
Yes.
Blacks and Irish weren't wanted in the 60s.
Yeah. Or dogs.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, I didn't have Axel Rudy Cabana on my list. I don't know why the hell I've missed him off. I didn't think about it enough, but I think it's a really good choice. So I'm glad we're going through your choices. So number 3 hero. We're heading towards this.
Number 3.
It's the villains we're worried about. Yeah.
Number 3. The number 3. This one won't be on your list.
It might be.
Number 3 hero is another president.
Javier Milei.
No. President, I'm going to have to read his name because I would struggle with his name. His name is...
He's such a well-known hero you can't even pronounce his name. Yeah.
President... My stutter's coming back. President Netanyahu.
Oh, Netanyahu.
That's the name.
The Israeli president.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
He's my hero, number 3 on the list. Not for the reasons most people are already thinking about now. So some of our listeners...
We're going to lose all our free Palestine listeners.
Some of our listeners will be going, I can't believe that Nick Buckley, he's a Jewish shill, he's a Zionist, he's a this, he's that. Oh, he always pretended he was non-globalist. He's been... I'm being paid by no one, by the way, but if the Jews want to send me some money, I'll take it. He's on my list for one specific reason. I'm not a Zionist. I don't care if Israel stays or goes. I don't care. I don't care if the Palestinian people stay or go. I don't care about foreigners. I just don't care about people on other continents. I don't care.
If you don't care, why are you including him then?
For this reason. Because here is a leader of a country who went, my job is to protect my people.
That's true. Yeah.
My job is to kill my enemies. And if you come into my country and you kill my people, we're going to hunt you around the world and we're going to kill every motherfucking one of you. We're going to blow up your phones, your pages, we're going to bomb you. I don't care if it kills you and your 10 children because I want you dead. And your children are collateral damage and I don't care. They're the leaders we need in the West. They're the leaders who go, my citizens first. And you mess with me and I'm going to kill you all. And that's why he is number 3 on my list.
And that's a really interesting point. He's not on my list, you're right. That's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because the very thing that we applauded after 9/11, which was that America taking a stance against the Middle East and Iraq and all that, the very thing that was applauded by the Americans and the West has been decried because Netanyahu's done it. And that's partially because of the Jewish thing, isn't it? Yeah. I'm sure our more sophisticated readers will tell me why that parallel isn't worth having, but it's a really good point. Part of the reason Trump has been embraced is because he wants to look after American people and protect American people. And that the chief exec of Palantir, I think it was talking about people want to feel safe. They want to go home and they want to feel safe in their country, which is what Trump is offering. And that's all Netanyahu's doing, isn't it? He's protecting his people, trying to make them feel safe.
40 years ago, we sent basically an armada to the South Atlantic to rescue 200 British citizens who lived on the Falklands who'd been invaded.
Yeah.
And I think we lost 140 odd men on that. And we were successful by the skin of our teeth because lots of things were going wrong and it was so far away. And Thatcher was declared a hero. We had celebrations that would beat Argentina, reclaim the Falklands. Roll on 40 years. Our Prime Minister at the moment is trying to give away British land in the Indian Ocean. And most of the country is saying, yeah, give it away, we don't want it. That's how much the country's changed in 40 years.
Yeah.
That we've sent young British white men to die for people who live 8,000 miles away, where now we're quite willing to give stuff away because I don't want to fight for it, I don't want to cause a problem. We need a leader like the Israelis have got at the moment who go, no, this is ours, and in fact if you keep messing around we'll invade you and we'll take your land and then you'll be part of greater Israel. I ain't got a problem with Israel expanding because I don't care if they do and I don't care if they don't and I don't care if the Arabs wipe Israel off the map. I don't care. It's not my fight. survival of the fittest, the strongest will survive. So I admire him for what he's doing for the Israeli people.
Okay, that's very good. I think the analysis is good. I think the sentiment is good. Whether he's a UK hero of 2024, I'm not too sure.
Well, I think he's a British hero because I think we all should be looking at him and going, that's the sort of leader we need.
Yeah.
We need a patriot. We need someone who will die for this country. We need someone who will put this country first. We need someone who will put our soldiers in harm's way for the benefit of this country.
So he's a hero because in the UK we need to look to people like this as setting an example.
Just like Trump.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that, Trump. I think our top five are getting completely different now as we're going down. Right, we're going to go to number 2, I think now. Number 2 villain of 2024.
Yeah.
Mr. Buckley.
You won't have him on your list. He wouldn't have crossed your mind. My next 2 are going to blow you away. The next one you'll go, no, yeah, I suppose that you would pick him. My next one is...
Oh, it's going to be... it's not going to be the mayor of Manchester, is it?
It's Andy Burnham.
Talk about...
Well, good guess.
Talk about your own agenda. You're becoming like the rest of them, Nick, aren't you? It's just like, yeah, go.
I have reasons.
Andy Burnham, who nobody's ever heard of, is now the number 2 villain of 2024.
Yes, he's a villain because I'm a Mancunian. And
this isn't just a list of people you don't like very much.
Well, that's why they're villains. He is a villain for several reasons.
He's not a Mancunian, he's a Scouse.
No, but I'm a Mancunian.
Yes, you are.
So, for several reasons, let's talk about the obvious ones first. He's the Mayor of Greater Manchester.
Yes.
He's the classic, iconic career politician who says nothing, does nothing, achieves nothing.
And toes the elitist line.
Yeah, has half-decent smile, has good communication skills, has a great PR team around him, and has polished himself like Tony Blair, and is now the king in waiting, and he's achieved nothing in his career.
Correct.
He's achieved nothing for Greater Manchester. Knife crime's out of control in Greater Manchester. When he came into office, he said he would eliminate, not reduce, he would end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. He said it'd take him 3 years. He's now had nearly 8. And rough sleeping now is just as bad as the day he took over. There was a dip when he spent billions of pounds, but it's back up again now to pre-Andy Burnham level. So he's completely failed on that. He's never spoken about knife crime. He doesn't meet any of the victims of knife crime. He's painted all our buses yellow, and he's using the yellow buses and he's not taken over the companies of the buses. He's privatised their contracts basically, so they all work for him now. He's reduced the bus fares, which sounds great, but he's put up our council tax to do it, and he's had billions off the government to do it. If he doesn't increase bus passengers by 30% in the next 2 years, the whole project goes bankrupt. So we could lose, we won't never lose our buses, but basically we could lose the bus system, but it'd be bailed out, just like London's bailed out all the time. He is a complete waste of time. You have no idea what he believes in. He believes in whatever's popular. He doesn't talk about many of the complicated topics because he probably has got an answer.
Coward, yeah.
He's a coward.
Yeah.
He's a career politician waiting to be king.
Yeah.
And the people of Greater Manchester deserve better. But the people of Greater Manchester keep voting him in.
Yes.
More fool Mancunians, more fool the people of Greater Manchester for keeping your eyes closed and not seeing through these charlatans, these career politicians, these polished turds. Stop voting for them. I'm not saying you should have voted for me. I'm just saying stop voting for people like that. DDSS, different day, same shit with Andy Burnham. And if you want change, you stop fishing in the same pool if you want change.
I think that's a very personal choice, Nick, and I would say that most of our viewers, especially the Manchester viewers who you just insulted and said, why do you keep voting for him, you're idiots, I think you might have lost some of them there. And I agree that Andy Burnham is a villain. Is he in the top 5 villains of 2024? No, he's not in the top 5 villains of 2024. But obviously you've got your personal agenda that you want to pursue. I'd say he's probably number 36, maybe. He is a villain, there's no doubt about it. I think a far better villain you could have chosen, who is also a mayor, who's on my list, is Sadiq Khan, who is an absolute little shit. And the things he has done to London in 2024 are scandalous. So I think he would have been a great choice, and I think a lot of people would have chimed with that choice if you were going to go for mayor.
I thought of Khan, but I'm the mayor.
You are the putative mayor.
So it had to be. If I want to talk about a mayor, it has to be the Greater Manchester mayor. And plus, Sir Sadiq Khan is an obvious choice.
Yes, of course it's an obvious choice, because he's an obvious villain.
Yeah, but it was too obvious. Too obvious, I thought.
Anyway, so we now understand that your elitist agenda is being fulfilled in this. So that's your number 2.
Yeah.
So Andy Burnham, folks, that's the number 2 villain in the 2024. You now know. I'm fascinated now to know who your number 1 villain is, because this is getting me very interesting. What about your number 2 hero of 2024?
I'm guessing my number 2 is your number 1. So my number 2 hero of the year is hero, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to heroes. Yeah.
So my number 2 hero of the year is a Mr. Nigel Farage.
No, he's not my number 1.
Oh, right.
He's in the top 3.
Right.
He's not my number 1.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nigel Farage.
You'll be surprised at my number 1.
I think we might have the same number 1, but we'll see in a minute.
Oh, sorry. Right. Okay. Yeah.
So Nigel Farage is.
You're running out of people. You're running out of people now. I think you've missed some good ones in there.
Maybe. Well, you can read yours at the end and tell me what I've missed out.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage is the most successful politician.
Sorry, right. So Nigel Farage is your number 2 hero of 2024. Yeah.
He's undoubtedly the most successful politician at the moment in time in this country.
I'd agree. Phenomenal.
He basically won the general election by making reform a viable option. Only 5 seats, I get that, but 4 million votes.
Yeah.
First time they ever stood in a general election.
And he started late as well. Do you remember?
Well, everyone started late. Everyone had 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was a very short campaign. He won that election.
It was started. I think it was started as a surprise like that. I think the Tories and Labour agreed between themselves they were going to do it. I think they said we need to keep reform out. We'll talk about this later. We're going to keep reform out, so let's pull a surprise election and catch Farage off guard. They agreed that between them.
I think that's true, but I don't think Labour were involved in the decision at all. Because Labour were the biggest beneficiaries of it. It was obvious Labour was going to be the big beneficiary of it. I think Sunak called the election because he was weak and had had enough. He knew he was going to lose the next election, and he went, well, why am I here? Why am I taking all this crap? Call the election, get it over and done with. But if he'd have waited to now, the end of the year, he still would have lost, but he would have won more seats. He would have put the Tories in a better position. I only found out the other day that when he announced the election, his cabinet didn't know.
Oh, really?
He made that decision. He went to the king, told the king, asked permission.
Well, the king knew before the cabinet?
Yes.
Really?
What normally happens is it's announced in a cabinet, they agree on it. It's then announced to the Commons or to the public, and they normally say, and now I'm off to see the king now, the monarch, to get permission. He did it the way round. He stood there and went, I've spoken to the king and he's giving a permission to call a general election. His cabinet didn't know. David Cameron was in a foreign country, had to fly back and miss all the reasons why he went. He was on a plane when it was announced. No one knew because he didn't want anyone to know because his cabinet would have ousted him.
Ah, I see.
So he wanted it to be a fait accompli.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, carry on.
Farage, let's get back to Farage.
Mr. Farage.
So Farage has changed British politics. His party now has taken off. They've now overtaken the Tory membership. 140,000 members now the Reform have got. Someone did a poll the other day. If the election was called yesterday, Farage would have 80 seats.
Yeah, no, but if it had been called yesterday, that's on the basis of what Labour have done over the past 6 months, so it wouldn't work that way, would it? Because actually Labour wouldn't have the track record it's got now.
No, I mean, if there was a new election called yesterday, Reform would win. 80
yes,
seats.
sorry, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So, even though that's not enough to form a government, but hey, they've got 5 seats at the moment. They go up to 80. That's not bad for 6 months campaigning.
No. And I think the reality of that is coming now because of Trump as well. This is why we come full circle to Trump.
Wait till Trump starts doing stuff.
Yeah.
And Farage says that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
More people will be following suit.
Well, all Farage has to say is, we'll do that when we're in power. And they'll know it because they know that he and Trump are good friends and that Trump supports him. So they'll know that.
And you've got something that's actually working. It's hard to sell an idea no one's seen.
Yeah, correct.
But when the idea is already being implemented and working, that's an easy idea to sell.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be Farage. He's got enough. I mean, it's too early to tell yet. This could all be a flash in the pan. Anything could happen. But at the moment in time, he's doing tremendous. The Tories are scared stiff of him. Labour are scared stiff of him. He now has the leader of the Tory party criticising his website to the major news outlets. How pathetic. I mean, that's not a story. It really isn't. If that's the most they can do to attack him.
It adds grist to the mill, doesn't it?
That's all
People
it does.
just look at that and say, we need to vote Reform, don't they?
Yeah. If that's all you can criticise Reform for is you think they're fiddling their online ticker of memberships. If that's it, then you're done.
I was kind of disappointed when Kemi Badenoch won the Tory leadership because I thought she was the best candidate, and I didn't want the best candidate to win because I want the Tories gone basically. But she's been doing a dreadful job.
She is a DI hire.
Is she?
Yeah.
Really?
She got a job again because she's a woman and because she's black. And when she became leader, I mean, she rose up the ranks partly because of that, but partly because she's an intelligent woman.
Yeah, she's an intelligent.
All these DI hires are fairly intelligent, but are they intelligent enough to get to that last position they get to? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
She's a caretaker manager. She will last a year or two. There'll be no traction in Tory votes and she'll be ousted. But I've always thought of that. She's in positions of some power now as opposition leader. What has she done? Done nothing. She's being tested and she's doing absolutely
So you
nothing.
think these DEI hires like Badenoch and other people we've talked about before, they are capable, they're intelligent, whatever, but they're not the superstars we need? That's what you're saying. It's kind of that. It's kind of putting an amateur boxer in against a professional boxer, isn't it? They haven't got that extra second of speed or millisecond of speed or reaction.
It's a difference between a world-class striker and Ronaldo and Messi.
Yes.
You look at the world-class strikers, you go, God, they're good.
They're
Kemi is good.
Yeah.
But is she a Ronaldo? Is she
That's
a
really
Messi?
good analogy. I like that.
So they're not stupid. She's a very intelligent woman. I know that. But is she that good? And the answer is no. Why are they taking a chance on her? They've taken a chance on her because, in an insulting way, they think because she's a black woman that gives the Tory party. She doesn't think that. But the mechanisms behind the Tory party all but she's a black woman. They can't call us racist with a black woman. Of course they can. They call you misogynist when you had female leaders. The left hate Margaret Thatcher, for God's sake.
That's interesting. So she's kind of Haaland to Ronaldo and Messi, really. Haaland is a world-class striker, but he's not got all those skill sets. However, David Lammy is as thick as two short planks. And he's a black DI. There's no doubt about it. But that's interesting. So I think, because I, like you, thought she comes across as quite bright and quite capable, but maybe she's not world class or not Messi standard. But
also because
whereas I think Farage is Ronaldo Messi standard, isn't he? He's got to be to have done what he's done.
Exactly. I mean, he's a one-man band. Look what he's achieved.
Phenomenal.
People think, he's only just become an MP. No, he was in the European Union for 20 years. He's done all sorts of things. Kemi looks better than she is because who she's surrounded by in the Tory party. So because she stuck up for biological women, we think she's the saviour.
Well, I did because of that.
She's got common sense.
That's true.
The days of thinking you're a fantastic leader because you've got common sense.
Because you think women are women.
She's also stood up in Parliament saying we need more immigration. And it's all on record. It's all on YouTube. Okay. We need to relax immigration for students. We need more immigrants. So she's on the opposite side to all of that. And the reason why I don't want her as leader and I don't want her as prime minister, because she's a foreigner. Mm. She is a Nigerian. Mm.
Was she born in Nigeria?
She was born in the UK.
Yeah.
Left immediately.
Yeah.
And then was raised in Nigeria in America.
Yeah.
Didn't come back to England until she was 16.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
So she's nothing wrong in that. That's not her fault.
Yeah.
That doesn't make her a bad person, but that doesn't make her British to me.
Yeah. Isn't there somebody else who was raised in Saudi? Who's that one? I'm getting confused about.
That's that Lord Chancellor, but it turns out she wasn't. She lived
Shabana Mahmood.
Yeah, she was born in Birmingham. Moved to Saudi with her parents was raised there to a certain age, then came back.
Yeah.
I had to put a correction on the video we did on that.
Oh, did you?
Just saying I was wrong. She wasn't born in Saudi, she was born in Birmingham. We've got to be honest. I mean, it's not, if this was a news channel, I don't know my research.
Yes.
It's not a news channel, is it?
It's not.
I don't know what we're talking about till we start talking about it. So
it's just two blokes talking rubbish.
Exactly. But when I know I've made a mistake, I put it in the notes of the video.
Let's circle back round to Nigel Farage. Finish off on why he's your
Nigel
hero.
Farage. It's the first time ever this last couple of weeks that the mainstream media are saying it's not impossible that he could become prime minister in the next election. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
I agree. Yeah.
That is a 180 for mainstream media to even acknowledge the fact that, and it is improbable at the moment he'll be prime minister, but and I agree with that bit, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I think that the mainstream media has shifted a lot. I mean, this is something to talk about elsewhere maybe, but they've shifted a lot in the past couple of months. But I think that's because they finally realised they're facing an existential threat. Their viewing figures are so low, the circulation of papers is so low. I think they're starting to realise if we don't start to actually do our job properly, report properly as journalists, we're going to die, basically.
I think that's part of the reason. I think that's part of the reason the people at the top of the mainstream media, but I think as you go lower down, I think a lot of them are going, things have changed. What I thought was reality doesn't seem to be reality, because why would Trump get elected? Why would Farage do so well? Why is reform still going up in the polls?
Yeah.
I think, not consciously, but subconsciously, I think lots of reporters in the mainstream media are subconsciously re-evaluating where they stand and what reality is. I don't think they know they're doing it, because I don't think they realised how biased they were in the first place. They were just, I'm reporting reality. And now it's reality, their reality is so unreality now, they're having to seek what is reality. And it's going to take another few months and years for that. But they've changed America as well.
Yeah,
it's changed. No,
it's changed massively.
You only can be proven wrong so many times before you say to yourself, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, am I the baddie?
Yeah, am I the baddie?
Yes. So that's great. Nigel Farage. So he's on my list. He's at my kind of number 3 though. I'm now fascinated to know who your number 1 hero is, but we're going to move first to your. I'm also fascinated to know who your number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually not that interested in your number 1 villain, because it's probably going to be Andy Burnham again.
Because he's twice as bad.
Because and that's a particular issue you've got to deal with mentally. So who is your, Nick Buckley, MBE, who is your number 1 villain of 2024?
My number 1 villain of 2024, I would say I've only started seeing as a villain again this last month. So they've just managed to get into it.
In this last month?
Yeah. And they are a group, not an individual, and they are sensible liberals.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Now, what's a sensible liberal, Nick? Right, a sensible liberal are the liberals we think we agree with at the moment, that we think are on our side. People who we know are liberal, who are for some of the woke stuff. Oh, I'm for gay marriage, but do you know what? Free speech is really important. We shouldn't, we should always have free speech. The liberals who go, we need to make lots and lots of adjustments for trans people because, you know, they may be mentally ill. But
they're not women. So they're sort of appeasers. They kind of appease whilst almost appearing to agree with us. You're not including Toby Young in this group, are you?
No.
Oh, right, okay. Right.
I'm talking...
Could you give me some examples of these sensible liberals then?
It would be people like J.K. Rowling.
No.
It would be people...
I'm not having that.
It would be people like...
Not having that.
Lindsay... That Lindsay guy, not you.
Lindsay Buckingham.
Lindsay...
Anderson.
No. The American guy, he was a university professor.
Jordan Peterson?
No, Lindsay something.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
For your number one villain, you're not very well...
No, because it's a group.
So they describe this group, they present themselves as on our side, if you like, but they caveat everything a little bit with... Is that what you said?
No. So they don't see themselves on our side. They see us as still wrong.
Yeah.
But they see the woke stuff has gone too far.
Stephen Fry?
Stephen Fry would be,
Yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to
he would be a good one. So these people were the initiators of woke, of political correctness.
Yes.
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
But deep down inside, they want...
Let's be kind. Yeah.
Yes, but they want free speech. They understand that men can't become women. But the woke stuff went too far, and the woke stuff lost them, even though they would have spent many years promoting woke at the beginning, thinking it was a great thing, but would never agree with us because we're too harsh on immigration, we're right wing, and you know, even though they pretend to be on our side now, but they're not. They're on our side because we think they're on our side.
David Baddiel?
Yes, they're on our...
David Aranovich?
Yeah.
Paul Weller?
Yeah, all people like that.
Yeah.
So the reason I put them number one is because we've spent decades now fighting the woke, fighting all these issues now. What we can't do is, now it looks like we're winning, we can't allow the liberal elite, the sensible liberals, I call them, to then restart it all again.
To hijack it
And restart it all again. Because their personalities want to still go down that road.
Yeah.
They just think it went too far.
Yeah.
And every time we go down that road, it will always go too far.
I think that's really interesting, and I think that's happening now.
They're the next
because
battle.
Stephen Fry was on Trigonometry.
Yeah.
And he said Stonewall's gone too far.
Yeah.
And I nearly fell off my seat.
Yeah.
Because he's an odious little creep, Stephen Fry, who's totally an establishment shill, into all the trans stuff and all that crap for ages, and now he's turning. He's turning because he can see the so I thought, to me, that was a sign that woke is dead. The fact that Stephen Fry, idiot that he is, has actually started to say Stonewall was wrong and all that trans stuff is wrong. But actually what you're saying here is they're actually trying to now re-seize the agenda. Or they're potentially going to re-seize the agenda if we're not careful.
Exactly. And if we're not careful, we will encourage them to do it. Because we have gone through the last 20 years thinking they're on our side or they're on our side. Same with me and you always disagreeing against J.K. Rowling. She's not on our side. I don't agree with...
I will not hear a bad word said about
J.K. Rowling is part of the problem.
J.K., if you're watching...
She's a misandrist feminist. But we think she's on our side because we both agree with her when it comes to the trans nonsense, and she's been a hero fighting
but
that.
She also despises the Labour Party now as well, doesn't she? It's not just a trans thing now.
Yeah, but there'll be things because we have one or two things we agree with on, we think she's like us. Lots of people we will admire over the next few years, we will realise they're very different to us. It was just that one thing we had in common. A little bit like the UK siding with Soviet Russia during the Second World War. We had nothing in common. We hated each other, but suddenly we had a common enemy. That's what's been happening now. We've had a common enemy of the woke authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And we've got together to fight it. Now we're beating it. There's a Cold War coming between
Yeah.
the sensible right, us,
Yeah.
and the sensible liberals, who are, again, the socialists. Nazi Germany came out of the socialist revolution.
Yeah.
So you can't go back to the initiators of the problem and thinking this time they won't create a new problem for us. They're always going to create problems. We need to identify who the enemies are, who the people who are wrong are, and we need to start highlighting them and saying, we don't work with you anymore now because you're part of the problem. You're not as bad as the LGBTQ nutcases, but you're part of the reason we've got the LGBTQ nutcases.
Yeah.
We need to be careful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, you've really thought that one through, actually.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Does that make up for the Andy Burnham?
Yeah, slightly. That's a good one. My top one villain was Keir Starmer, as I've already said.
Yeah.
And now the moment we've all been waiting for, because I think you've got you've missed a number of important heroes here. So the one you choose, some people will be left behind.
They will.
So this is ladies and gentlemen, if we could have a fanfare, if you could put one over the...
Yeah.
Nick Buckley, MBE, who is your number one hero of 2024?
My number one hero of 2024 is a man who wouldn't class himself as a hero, who there's an argument to be made, maybe isn't a hero, but he will go down in history as a hero because of his sacrifice, and he's Peter Lynch. He's the granddad who...
I don't believe it. That's my number one as well.
Right.
Very well done.
He's the
agree.
granddad who fought, not physically, he pushed back against the government and the killing of those 3 girls by going on the streets and shouting at the police, but mainly being a protester. Was sentenced to 2.5 years in jail for no violence whatsoever, and then killed himself. He is a hero, not because of killing himself and not because of going on the streets because he didn't realise what it was going to lead to. He's a hero because every culture, every country needs heroes, and a hero is always about self-sacrifice. It doesn't necessarily mean you put yourself up to be martyred. That it doesn't, because then that's not really a hero if you do it on purpose to be martyred. But it's you taking on something a lot larger than you, which he'd been doing, and you being punished for it and not giving up, and then you inspiring others because of your sacrifice. And hopefully he has changed the country, and I hope as time moves on and there's more demonstrations, when more things happen, because there will be more murders, there will be more Islamic attacks, I hope we start using his name and his picture and what he gave up so we could live in a free society. So he's my hero.
I think that is a fantastic choice. It's also my number one as well. Peter Lynch, you know, a normal man, a working man in this country who went to protest against something.
A flawed man. Yeah. Because he was an average man.
He was an average man. He was an average man. He was called a right-wing thug, racist, but he went on the streets and protested what he thought about.
Didn't have a criminal record.
Didn't have a criminal record. Didn't actually commit a crime. Was jailed for that, and then through sheer despondency and understanding despondency, because his in jail, what he must have thought is, how can I be wrong? How can this society I've grown up in, this society I love, this country I love, have done this to me when I was doing something that I believed in? And through that sheer despondency about what happened to his country, he then killed himself. And as a result of that, his name is now remembered by you and me, remembered by people in the protest. And I think you're right. I think he will gather momentum as a British hero who gave his life as a political prisoner in this country. And I think it's a tremendous choice. And I fully agree with you on that one. That's a really good one.
Good.
Thank you. Really good. I'll now go through the things you've missed.
Right, okay.
Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, I can see why some people put him on a list.
He would definitely be my top 5. I mean, he's in a similar. I mean, he's been in solitary confinement since he got arrested way back in, was it November or something?
That's his own protection, they would say, because most people in jail want to kill him.
He spent Christmas in solitary confinement. He's not done anything. He's one of the few men in this country who's been brave enough to speak about from the beginning about radical Islam and the impact it's having on this country. He's been proven right time and time again, and despite that he's still languishing in jail. So he is a real hero as well. Again, I put Peter Lynch first, but Tommy Robinson probably would have been my second. Douglas Murray was on my list. Maybe not in my top 5, but somebody who has kept the fight going for free speech in the year. I think on the villains, we're generally agreed. However, I would include Angela Rayner as just a despicable, nasty, horrible person in the government who is a villain.
Can you class someone as a villain who's just incompetent?
Well, yes, I can.
You can.
Am I a villain? Yeah, I just despise stupid people who get into positions of power and don't understand how stupid they are. So those are villains to me. People who don't understand how thick they are and don't understand they should not be in positions of power, and those are the dangerous ones. But one that I didn't include, and wanted to include, and it's interesting because you kind of covered it, and I've called this media elitist shills, and this is a long list. John Sopel, Emily Maitlis, Rory Stewart, Alistair Campbell, James O'Brien, Robert Peston, so-called journalists and media figures, Gary Lineker's in there as well, who align themselves with the establishment narratives and the globalist ideologies and constantly bombard people who think they're watching an unbiased media channel like the BBC with their bullshit all the time. And the fact they have been in such positions of power for such a long time, now they're finally being exposed. But I detest those people, and they have been villains in 2024, trying to work against the British people.
I think every one of them believes every word they say, and they're just the example of how brainwashed the country in the West has been, and how brainwashed and propagandized these big organisations are. That they moved up those organisations, especially the BBC, because of who they are and what they believe.
Yeah.
So when you speak to them, they'll go, well, BBC never tells me what to say. I wouldn't have him telling me. There's no editorial line on what my interviews. I ask what I want. Well, of course they do. They never would have promoted you to the position you were if they ever disagreed with anything you ever said. You got promoted because you're just the person they want at the top of the news.
Yeah.
It's not them telling you. The global elite are not telling them what to say. They were promoted because they already
are aligned with those.
Because
things.
they already believe what the global elite is saying.
I understand. Yeah.
So that's how they get there.
But they are doing a massive disservice to the people of this country. And you could argue again, it's not on my list, but you could argue again, another major villain of 2024 is the BBC itself. It has been horrendous. So. But no, I think that's been really interesting, Nick. Your list is really good. I like your number one choice as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, top 5 villains and heroes of 2024. Nick Buckley, thank you very much.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year to you. Sorry, forgot about that.